I would like to tell you an old story. It's a story that shows up in anthologies that are often read to children. So raise your hand if you had stories from the Brothers Grimm read to you as a child. Oh yes, of course, there were some lovely stories in there, really nice. Nothing nearly as creepy as what we've heard, but things that pointed out important lessons and morals and such. Of course, not all of the Grimm stories do that. Some of them are grimmer than others, and this is one of those. A long time ago, there was a man and a woman, a husband and a wife, and they were happy for the most part. But although they had wished for children and longed for children and hoped for children and prayed for children, you know what's coming, right?
Yeah.
They had no children. They had no children at all. But one day, the woman was outside. It was winter and there was snow covering the ground, and she stood beneath a juniper tree. And she had an apple in her hand, and in the other hand a knife. And as she began to peel the apple, the knife slipped, and she cut her hand. Not badly, but still. Into the snow there dropped some drops of her blood. How many drops?
3.
Oh, 3, of course. If you know stories, you know it would be 3 drops of blood. And so she looked at that red blood on the white snow, and she said, "Oh, if only I had a child. A child as red as blood and as white as snow." Why would she say something like that? I don't know, that's just kind of weird, isn't it? But she really wanted a child, and as soon as she said those words, her heart was filled with gladness, and she felt certain that she would have such a child. And that was the first month. And in the second month, the snow still lay on the ground. And in the third month, the snow began to melt. And in the next month, the birds began to sing. And in the following month, the flowers began to bloom. And in the following month, the new leaves appeared on the tree. And in the next month, the juniper berries on that tree were ripe. And in the next month, that woman stood beneath the juniper tree, and she ate those juniper berries, handful after handful after handful after handful. And in the following month, she felt most unwell. I think it could have been the following 15 minutes, but it says the following month she felt most unwell. And she said to her husband, if I should die, please bury me beneath the juniper tree." And he agreed. And in the next month, she gave birth to a child, a beautiful baby, a baby boy who was indeed as white as snow and as red as blood, although the story doesn't really say exactly how that was. It's kind of hard to picture, isn't it? But in any case, it fulfilled what she had known would happen. And she was so happy. She was so happy. She was so happy that she died. Because, it doesn't pay to be too happy. If you're that happy, just kind of worry. And so she was buried beneath the juniper tree, as she had requested and as her husband had agreed. And her husband wept and mourned. He was so sad. He was inconsolable. And then after a time, he still wept and mourned, but he was consolable. And then after a time, he married again, a woman who was beautiful of face and form, but not of heart. And the two of them were married, and in time they had a child between them, a little girl whom they named Marlena. And the mother, the stepmother, she loved her little girl, and she treated her well. But her stepson, she could not abide him. Because every time she looked at him, she thought, he is standing between my child and her inheritance. And so she missed no opportunity to treat him badly. She pinched him, and she prodded him, and she poked him. She boxed his ears. She slapped him from one side of the house to the next, until the poor boy had no peace at all from the time that he came home from school until the time he returned to school the next morning. But one day, Marlena went to her mother and said, "Mother, may I have an apple?" And her mother said, "Of course, child. Come with me." And she led her into her room where the apples were kept in a large oaken chest with a heavy oak lid fastened by a heavy, sharp metal lock. No fruit bowl on the dining table for this family. And she unlocked that chest and she lifted up the lid and she said to Marlena, "Choose any apple you like." And Marlena reached in and chose an apple, and then she said, "And Mother, shall my brother have an apple as well?" Ah, that made the stepmother unaccountably angry. She snatched that apple away from her child, threw it back in the chest, slammed down the lid, and said, "Of course. When he comes home from school, you may each have an apple." And so when the boy, we don't even know his name, he is only called the boy. When the boy returned from school, his stepmother was waiting for him at the door. And she said, "Boy, would you like an apple?" And he thought to himself, "Oh, how very fierce she looks." But then he thought to himself, "Oh, well, on the other hand, she's never offered me anything at all nice, and, well, an apple sounds good." He said, "Yes, I would. Yes, please." And she said, "Oh, good, follow me." And she led him into the bedroom, and she unlocked that heavy metal lock on that large wooden chest. She raised the lid, and she said, "Choose any apple you like. The sweetest ones are at the back." And so he stretched out over that large chest to get one of the sweetest apples, and as he did, she put her hands on that heavy oaken lid and she brought it smashing down right on his unprotected neck, and his head fell off and into the apples. And the stepmother said, oh my, oh my.
Oh my God.
Not that she was really sad about what she had done, but she thought, how can I make it so that it doesn't look like I have killed this boy? And so she retrieved the head from where it was with the apples. She was made a mental note to wash those apples when she was done. And she went back downstairs. She took the boy's body. She set it on a chair by the back door. And she set the head on the body. And then she wound a scarf around the neck to disguise the fact that they were not actually connected anymore. And then she put in his outstretched hand an apple. Well, when Marlena came in and she saw her brother sitting there, she said to him, "Oh, you have an apple, will you share it with me?" And he said, this will not be a surprise to you, he said nothing, because, he was dead. And so she went to her mother and she said, "Oh, mother, my brother is sitting in a chair by the door and he looks so pale, but he has an apple. I asked him if he would share with me and he did not reply." And her mother said, "Oh, that is very bad of him. Ask him again, child, and if he does not share, then box his ears." Well, she went back to where her brother's body was sitting on the chair, and she asked him again to share the apple, and of course he said nothing. Well, now she was not the sort of girl who believed in boxing people's ears, especially when they had done nothing. But she did give him a little bit of a shove, and that was enough. And the body fell over, and the head fell off and began to roll down the floor. And she ran screaming to her mother. She said, Mother, it is the most horrible thing. I have killed my brother, and his head is rolling across the floor." And her mother said, oh dear, whatever shall we do?" Well, it seems clear that what we must do is, watch the logic here, make him into a stew. And so she got a large cauldron, she filled it with water, she put it on the fire, and then she chopped up the body and added it to the cauldron, and then she added some carrots and some onions and some potatoes and a little bit of seasoning, a little basil and oregano and things like that, and then she told Marlena to stir it. And Marlena stood on a stool and stirred the grisly stew, but as she did, she wept and wept and wept, and her tears dropped into the stew so that it needed no additional salts. And then when the father came home, he said, "Oh, something smells so wonderful. What is it? I'm very hungry." And she said, "Oh, I have made you a special stew, and it is almost ready. Come sit down and you may eat. He sat down. He said, aren't you having some? She said, oh, I will eat later. He said, but Marlena. He said, oh, Marlena is very, very sad. Why is she sad? Well, she misses her brother. Oh, right, said the man. Where is my son? Oh, said the stepmother. He has gone to visit his uncle. Oh, said the father. Well, he didn't tell me about that. No. He told me to tell you. He's going to be gone for about 6 weeks, but Marlena is very sad. And so the father turned to Marlena and said, oh, do not weep, child. Your brother will be home before you know it, and things will be fine. That seems really unlikely. And so he dipped his spoon into the stew and he took a bite. He said, oh, this is wonderful. I have never eaten such fine stew. I feel like this should be all mine. It's good that neither of you wants any of it because I would not like for you to have any of it. I will eat it all myself. And so he ate bowl after bowl after bowl of the grisly stew. And then in the manner of the time, he took the bones after the broth had been consumed. He took the bones and he gnawed the last bits of flesh from the bones. And then he sucked out the marrow. And then he threw the bones under the table. And then he went up to bed. He was really full and kind of tired. And Marlena was left to clean up the mess. Well, she did the dishes and cleared the table. And then she took a white kerchief and she crawled beneath the table. And she put the bones in the kerchief and she folded it up. She took it outside and she buried those bones beneath the juniper tree where the boy's mother lay. And then the next day, she went out to see where she had buried the bones. And it was unusual because even though it was daytime, there was a mist, a thick mist that was gathering at the base of that tree. A mist, and in the midst of the mist there was a fire, and out of the fire there arose a bird, a beautiful bird. Its feathers were red and green, and its neck looked as though it was made of pure gold. And as she looked at the bird, it began to sing. My mother, she killed me, my father, he ate me, and sister Marlena did gather my bones, and then she did place them beneath the wild juniper. To it, to I, what a fine bird am I. And then the bird flew off. It flew into town, and it landed on the roof of a goldsmith shop. The goldsmith was inside, and he was making a golden chain. And he heard the bird singing. My mother, she killed me, my father, he ate me, my sister Marlena did gather my bones, and then she did place them beneath the wild juniper. To it, to I, what a fine bird am I. He ran out, he said, oh, bird, that is the most wonderful song. Sing it again, sing it again. And the bird said, nay, I will not sing twice for nothing. And the goldsmith said, well, then you must have this golden chain. And he tossed the chain into the air, and the bird flew down and caught the chain, sang the song again, and then flew off. It flew to a cobbler's shop, landed on the roof. The cobbler was inside, making a pair of shoes, red shoes, fine shoes. And the bird landed and began to sing. And this is the audience participation part, because you can join me in the singing. My mother, she killed me, my father, he ate me, my sister Marlena, she gathered my bones, and then she did place them beneath the tall juniper. To it, to I, what a fine bird am I. The cobbler came running out of his shop and he said, oh, bird, sing that song again. And the bird said, nay, I will not sing twice for nothing. Well then, said the cobbler, you must have these shoes. And he threw the shoes into the air, and the bird caught them, sang the song again, and flew off to a mill. And there at the mill, there were 20 millers who were working on a new millstone. It was a huge stone, and they were carving and chipping away at the stone, and the bird began to sing. My mother, she killed me, my father, he ate me, my sister Marlena, she gathered my bones, and then she did place them beneath the tall juniper. To it, to I, what a fine bird am I. And with the first line, the first of the millers began to listen, and when the bird sang the second line, 2 more millers began to listen, and at the third line there were 4 millers, and by the time the bird reached the last line. All 20 millers were listening, but of course they'd only heard the last line. And so the very last of the millers to join in the listening, he said, "Oh, bird, sing that song again." And the bird said, "Nay, I'll not sing twice for nothing." And the miller said, "Well, I'd be happy to give you this millstone, but it doesn't belong just to me. It belongs to all of us." And all the rest of the millers said, "Oh, let's give the millstone to the bird. Yes, let's do it." They all voted in favor. And so the bird flew down and caught that millstone around its neck and carried it off like it was no heavier than a feather. And then the bird sang again, and then the bird flew back to the juniper tree and began to sing. And when the father heard that singing, the father went outside and he heard the bird singing. You want to sing again? Sure you do. Let's go for it. My mother, she killed me. My father, he ate me. My sister, Marilyn, did gather my bones. And then she did place them beneath the tall juniper. To why, what a fine bird am I. Well, the father was amazed. It was the most beautiful song he'd ever heard. And he said, "Oh, bird, that is wonderful." And the bird dropped down a golden chain that landed right around the man's neck. He ran back into the house and he said, "Oh, you must come outside. It is the most wonderful thing. It is the beautiful bird. It has feathers of red and green. Its neck looks like pure gold. And look, it has given me this beautiful golden chain. Perhaps it has a gift for all of you. I feel like it makes me so happy." And the stepmother said, "Maybe it makes you happy, but it doesn't make me happy. It doesn't make me happy at all. It makes me feel like my blood is going to boil. It makes me feel like my head is going to be cleft in two. It makes me feel like the earth is going to open up. No, I will not go outside." But Marlena said, "I want to see the bird." So she went outside. The bird began to sing. I think we're good on that for now. And the bird began to sing, and then Marlena looked up and the bird dropped down those red shoes. It will come as no surprise to you to know that not only was red her favorite color, but they fit her perfectly. She ran back into the house and she said, "Oh, mother, father is right. It is the most wonderful bird. It sings beautifully, and look, it has given me this wonderful gift. Perhaps it has a gift for you. This makes me so happy." And the mother said, "This does not make me happy. This makes me feel as though the world were going to be coming to an end. This makes me feel like my head were going to catch on fire. No, I will not." "Well, on the other hand, maybe it has a gift for me. Sure, I'll go outside." And so she went outside, but as soon as she went out that door, the bird dropped that millstone right on the woman's head, and it crushed her to death. Yeah, we're not sad about that. And then, I know, how grisly have we become? She died in a horrible way. Well, yay! So, at that point, there was a mist at the base of that juniper tree. And in the midst, there was a flame. And out of the fire, there came a boy. The boy. The one who was as red as blood and as white as snow. And he took his sister's hand, and he took his father's hand. And the three of them went back into the house. And from all accounts, the three of them lived happily ever after.